know there ain't no stopping us. Fly without boarding pass. Couldn't catch me, I be moving fast. Call me a star. Let 'em know who you are. Flying up in a bar. Wish on a star. Time to show 'em who's in charge. Call me a shooting star. Didn't even get to bronze. I said I'm moving too far. Get to glass. Looking at a shooting star. Got more than a couple of people going mad. I swear they're rooting hard. Tell them I'd be big in the game like she went and got them breast implants. I said I'm moving too fast. Didn't even get to glance. I'm ready to eat up track like I'm seated in a restaurant. If you had swag like mine, you know it's best to flaunt. We aren't hating because you aren't. Shining like it's neon. Rock like kings of Leon. Shooting stars across the galaxy. I stand out, so don't be mad at me. Infiltrate, I'm with my strategy. When I turn up, then I just have to leave. Shooting stars across the galaxy. I stand out, so don't be mad at me. Infiltrate, I'm with my strategy. When I turn up, then I just have to leave. Yeah, shoot. Yeah, shoot.
Well, hello everyone. Hopefully, yep, it looks like my mic is working. I always wait for you guys to let me know because this setup here in my boudoir area sometimes gets a little sketchy because I have to set it up each time and I just stab myself with the scissors. No bueno. And hey, Corey, nice to see you. So definitely no bueno that I just, see, I don't know if you can see that blood. Trying to open this damn eyeshadow and stab myself and broke a fingernail that I'm going to need to, it's like broken down near the base. And I'm going to need to super glue it. Any woman now is going, oh my God, breaking a fingernail down at the base. That's awful. Oh God. Alrighty, let me try to find where my cursor went. See, I've got multiple screens here. And you know how your cursor can disappear. I see it now because I need to do some of the preliminaries. First off, if you are not a patron of the show, I would super appreciate it. Over the past month, I lost about 4 patrons, not due to any kind of dissatisfaction, but because people's financial situations change. You can't expect them to commit to something forever. You know, you agree to be a monthly patron for as long as you can do it. And not everyone can do it for long periods of time, and that's completely understandable. So if you can, and you would like to help me not only make up that shortfall, I was really getting close to a major milestone. I would super appreciate it. Down at the bottom here is my Patreon. And I'll get that out of there because I don't like having advertisements up very long. Also, in these sorts of discussions, it seems that a lot of people are motivated to do super chats. Super chats are always welcome and is a way to make up for the fact that political content on YouTube doesn't really get Oh, I'm going to get copyright struck for this. That is my ringtone. Yes, apple bottom, the low, Florida's low is my ringtone. I had to put that on silent because I'll get copyright struck like I did last night. And speaking of that, yeah, my videos tend not to get ad revenue. because it's the type of content that just doesn't. So super chats are really, really welcome. And last, and this will be the last of the promos. Sorry, I need some soda. In the low bar, if you're on YouTube, you'll find my Amazon affiliate link. If you do your Amazon shopping there, it puts a little cookie like on your system. So even I don't have to like specifically promote any of the items you buy. If you start with that link in that one session, anything you buy in that session gets, I see a tip there, Corey, and I will take a look at that. Anything that you buy during that session will be credited to my affiliate account, and my Pink Flame of Liberty wish list is down there. There are items on that wish list for all price points if you'd like to just surprise me with a gift. I've had that happen a few times, and it is very, very sweet. That's it for all of that. Let me stick on my chat widget, though, as we learned last time, it doesn't stay live each time I go to a video, and I don't want to be stabbed in vain. Let me see if I can get this frickin' eyeshadow open. Don't you hate this? Ladies know. Like, these little tiny single eyeshadows are a bitch to open. Like, they seal them more than Fort Knox, and you end up stabbing yourself. Ah, got it open. Okay. Thank God. Alrighty. Ugh, it's a frost. I thought it was a matte white. I really need to buy a matte white. Damn it. Well, I'm about to use this frosted white. I'm going to do a white look today. Okay. Alright, well, we got that done. Need to find, I want to pull this down to get super glue to fix this nail as well. Yes, packaging is designed by sadists. Clamshell packaging most of all, but those little... I hope I don't yank this nail off when it was broken down at the base. But okay, so let me set up what we're going to be looking at. Michael Malice did a fantastic interview with Lex. His name's in the title. I can't remember. Was it Fridman? Somebody I didn't know before, and for some reason they're wearing military uniforms because I think they like cosplaying authoritarians. Michael Malice does that a lot. I don't know why. If it's like a fetish thing, I don't know. I don't care. But I'm just letting you know they're in these weird military uniforms. Okay, no judging here. You do you. Fly your freak fag boo. Did I say freak fag? Freak flag boo. Fly your freak flag boo boo. You know, I don't care. You like cosplaying some kind of kinky authoritarian generals? Sounds like fun. Okay, so we're going to go to the first clip, and I'm going to start doing my get ready with me makeup.
And we always talked about let justice be done though the heavens fall. This is a common kind of motto among people with conscience, and that you have to do the right thing even the consequences might not be what you like. And I think that is a good loose definition of heroism.
All right. That was a real short clip. The ones coming up are not. But a lot of the discussion focuses on heroism and bravery, which you know has been a subject near and dear to me lately, defining what is bravery, defining what is heroism, since people have been made a martyr by the LNC, and a lot of people have called me a hero, which makes me somewhat uncomfortable because I don't really necessarily think of myself that way. And I've had to do a lot of struggling with that on the nature of heroism, bravery, that sort of thing. I think everyone, though, who does the right thing, even when it can personally harm them, has done something heroic. So I have accepted the fact that that whole thing with New Hampshire and stuff was a minor act of heroism. I don't like that the same word is used for someone who might do something like that, where I could have lost my LNC position, is the same word of somebody who like jumps in front of a speeding car to save someone's life. I don't think it should be the same word. So I guess that's what made me uncomfortable. I do believe I did the right thing and it required a certain kind of bravery, but it's not the same kind of bravery as jumping in front of a speeding car type thing. But he brought up something near and dear to me, where he said Camus, who's someone I've never read, and because of Michael Malice, that's an author I am going to read. said, though the heavens fall, do the right thing. That is the classic expression of deontological ethics. And those of you who know me well. I am a very hardcore deontologist, a very hard deontologist. That's what informs my ethics. So if you said Camus is also a hard deontologist, we're birds of a feather, and I would like to check out his work. So if anyone in chat has a certain piece of Camus work that I should read, I would welcome the recommendation because completely unfamiliar with that author. Okay, let me go to the next scene. If this is working, I should be able to do this with a touch of a button.
I think heroism in this context is defiance and standing true to values of liberalism, humanism, and venerating the sanctity of human life.
Okay, another short clip. Let me put on my primer here. This is Sonia Kashuk, which is a Target brand. I freaking love Sonia Kashuk stuff, by the way. It's like designer quality at Target prices. So let me just get that on and let that set in my pores and everything here a little bit. So I do agree with him that fundamentally everyday heroism is about defiance. There's a lot of things in life we need to defy. I'm just taking a look at my comment screen over here in case you're wondering. I've got this little extra monitor mounted to the wall. And it is defiance to me, a defiance, in the service of justice and good, but also defiance to stand up for those who have less power in a situation where you could help them because you have more power in that situation, which to me was the essence of that whole New Hampshire debacle. They were absolutely powerless in light of a authoritarian, dictatorial LNC, and I had power in that situation, and I am more than willing to help people like that. Corey had a good statement I want to stick up here on the broadcast. He had said it's somewhere in between a good deed and less than complete martyrdom. Though I do think both those two extremes are also heroic in their own way. A good deed, where you're going to get nothing from it and you expect nothing from it, that's a small act of heroism, and complete martyrdom actually is as well. Hopefully not very many people of us will be called to that, though some people really seem to fetishize martyrdom, particularly certain religious people. I mean, there's a whole martyrdom fetish cult in Christianity I've seen. But let's continue.
There is some aspect, the way I think about heroism is something like you said about the Nazi soldier, which is quietly, privately, in your own life, live the virtues that you want the rest of the world to live by.
Yeah.
And that, again, I had a lot more short clips than I thought. Oh, God. This glue. Ever use brush-on nail glue? The lid ends up getting stuck on. I thought I had some other glue. Hold on here a second. Well, I got some in this package, but I didn't really want to open this whole package just to get at the glue, but I guess I'm going to have to, because this fingernail is not going to go well. So I agree with Lex there, that a lot of times the test of heroism is, because I don't think it's particularly heroic if you are doing something to be seen or to get the reward. That's just then a free market exchange, right? Value for value. I do this, I get your adulation. I do this, I get to sit at the best seats at the table. So his whole thing of doing the right thing in secret, or doing the right thing, I would add, because not everything can be in secret, but a lot of times you're just not even aware of the watchers or even care about the watchers, of doing the right thing without expecting a reward. In fact, expecting the opposite, realizing that you're standing nearly alone, and that's probably not going to change. And that's the type of everyday heroism that I think all of us can and should do. And again, that is how I would characterize that recent incident involving New Hampshire. Let me take a look at the chat here, because I did get out this glue, though I don't know how to open it. Oh, look, this little lid has like a little pin in it. Normally you have to cut it open. How does this work? This is interesting, though I'm probably going to end up stabbing myself again. Okay, so you stick that in here. Does that open it? Product packaging. Okay, so H. Reardon said, I just came from the King Pilled chat. I don't even know what that is. Matt, I don't even know who these, so tell me what show that is. I don't know who this Matt is. Matt described me as a resident skeptic of his chats, and I personally see nothing with patting oneself on the back. Well, I don't see anything wrong with being proud of oneself. Correct. Sometimes you're going to be your only cheerleader. I was talking about expecting getting patted by other people on your back. And to me, then, that's not heroism. If that's what you're expecting, that's just a free market exchange. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not heroism. And we need people who do the right thing, even if it's to get the reward of others. We need more people doing the right thing. Their motives don't change the fact that the right thing was done. It just might change the type of reward that they'll get, or whether or not you would call them a hero or a mercenary. And I think we need mercenaries. I'm not saying the word mercenary. Okay, so that lid wasn't to puncture it. I think it was to keep it open, but I think I cut down too far. Oh well. This is kind of a weird little thing of, I'm going to try to keep it upright. There we go. But at least I was able to glue that nail down so I don't, yank it off at the bottom. So let me put this up on chat, because I know nothing about Lex. So you're saying Matt is a so-called post-libertarian, Reardon? What does that mean? I might have to check out that show. So is the show called King Pilled? I already don't like the name of it. So Kyle B says, Lex usually wears a black suit. In one interview with Michael, he wore the exact suit and inverse color scheme to Lex. Those two seem like characters. They were definitely just having fun, but it's surprising Lex agreed to it. And the Fish says, you guys got to watch Lex's day in the life. He's much more human than he comes off, but he's very focused and driven. Actually, in this entire show, Lex comes off extremely human. Extremely human in a noble way. Lex seems like a very noble character. I only watched this one show, and that's really the impression that I got. So, I'm already a fan. What is this? I don't see how to remove that from chat. Oh, here you go. Okay. Yeah, Malice's Twitter is pure comedy gold most days. I think Malice has one of the quickest wits I've ever seen. Okay, so next clip, because my foundation, not foundation, my I want to put this away. This is getting in my way. My primer is nice and settled in. Those of you who don't know makeup or aren't very good at it yet, you should give some time between like your foundation layers, your primer and your foundation, and let it settle and breathe. Okay, so next scene.
Camus, on the other hand, would probably was very much like a social democrat. He didn't really talk about what politics should be so much as it shouldn't be. His essay, Reflections on the Guillotine, is one of the great masterpieces of all time, an attack on the death penalty, not in terms of no one's evil or it's wrong to kill murderers, but in terms of what does it do for a society if you have someone who takes a person and locks them in a room and says, you know, in 2 years I'm going to murder you, and you lock them for that. This is not someone we'd regard as moral. We regard this as someone who's a complete monster. But that's what the state does, you know, with the death penalty. And he challenges us to think, is this the kind of people we want to be? And again, he's saying, I'm not saying killing a murderer is wrong. I'm not saying evil is wrong. His entire career was dedicated to fighting the concept of evil. But are we the kind of people who want to be doing these things that in any other context we regard as torture or depraved? So I'm much more of a Camus person than a Sartre person.
So he was probably.
Okay, I super, super love this clip. Let me just finish buffing in this foundation. These brushes are great for that, by the way. But get the expensive ones. I've got some of the Wish ones. I'll show you a Wish one. It's a piece of crap. I don't know. This is Real Tech or Real T or RT. A great brush. Well, I think I paid like $30 for this brush, but I've had it like 10 years. So you can, $30 was a lot more money even then, but super, super worth it. But I really just got to buff this in good and then let it breathe. Okay, so I super love this clip, and I'm going to explain why. And now the foundation's kind of glowing weird. Let me turn off, try to get a little bit better lighting. Okay, that's a little bit, well, that's still kind of glowy, isn't it? Where's the light coming? It's coming from this side. So let me put this back on, turn off the light here. Okay, well, that seems a little better to me, at least. I'm still a little weirdly glowy. What I'm going to say why I like this clip is not going to make everyone happy. Because I'm going to say something nice about something that people today generally they're not big fans of this person, but that's okay. I'm still fucking with all my lights. Back when I was a brand new libertarian, and I don't even think Wayne was a libertarian yet, or he just became a libertarian. We were at the LPCO convention, and Nick Sarwark was there as a guest. He was, you know, chair of the party. And this is back when Nick was great, okay? Nick always had a kind of a strange comportment. And strange isn't even the right word. It was strange to me, but I don't mean to say like he was weird or anything. But it was the whole stoic personality that he tried to cultivate. I don't think he's nearly as much of a stoic as he pretends to be. But back then, I didn't know it. So it was almost cold. So his demeanor was flat, like emotionless, and chilling in a way. And I always got a chill from him, like, not like the good kind, like, ooh, somebody, you know, you're interested in type thing. Just very cold, and I'm a very emotional person. So it always, like, was like, I don't know, felt very foreign to me. But I, and Wayne were having a conversation. And Nick, if you don't know, used to be a public defender, which I think is very noble, and has defended a lot of people against the death penalty. And Nick is very, very opposed to the death penalty. I believe he's the person who got the death penalty, anti-death penalty, into Colorado's platform. Colorado was the first state to have an anti-death penalty provision. He also was instrumental in getting the anti-death penalty plank into the national platform, though it was Whitney Bilyeu, our current chair, who proposed the language that finally got it passed, because it looked like it was going to die on the floor. So there's some historical trivia for you. But Nick, I had already was opposed to the death penalty way before I became a libertarian. My husband was not, though. So Nick was talking with my husband, and he gave almost, and perhaps Nick got it from Camus. I don't know. But what Nick said to my husband as to why he was opposed to the death penalty, he said, well, if someone breaks into my house, and, you know, I'm in fear for my life, I could shoot him while he's in my house. But if I were to capture him and then take him out to the shed in back of my house and keep him back there and keep him housed and fed for several years. But one day I take him out and like, nope, today's your day, shoot him in the head, that would be evil. And that had a huge effect on Wayne. And I'll never forget that, because that is, in fact, pretty much what the death penalty is. When the person's no longer a threat, it's evil, in my view, though Camus' not going this far. Camus seems to be saying it's okay to execute somebody who's killed other people, but that the method of it is questionable. He isn't saying it's outright evil. At least I don't think so. I need to read that Reflections on the Guillotine, not guillotine. Come on, let's pronounce it right. But yeah, in any other context would certainly be considered evil. I think in this context it's considered evil as well. It's premeditated murder. But he asks, it's a question that I asked back when I started to become against the death penalty, was not only because I had started to hear stories about people who had actually been responsible for executing people and what it did to them as people. And I asked, do we want to be the kind of society, this is way before I was a libertarian, so I didn't get into any of the libertarian arguments. It was just more the moral, religious type arguments. Do we want to put people in that position? What are we doing to people when we have them make somebody helpless before them and then you kill them? That just didn't sit right with me, and that seems to be the argument that Camus is making. Okay, I'm going to... what is love? Don't hurt me, baby, don't hurt me. Okay, let's continue. Mac Erickson is King Pilled YouTube channel. Okay. All right, well, I will check out that channel. I never heard of it before. And it might be something I could extract out clips for. I tend to watch the same shows. If you guys want me to start listening to other ones, you just need to give me, suggestions. Now, I want to pull this up. It's easy for one to make such a point if they have not had a loved one who has been murdered. But Hank, how is that any different of it's easy to say don't steal from people for health care if you haven't had a mother who couldn't afford for cancer? I don't think those emotional arguments are good for one-on-one conversations and to practice human empathy, but they're terrible in arguments about policy, and I don't think they have any place in arguments about policy. Corey says justice has a deterrent component, a restitution component, and a retribution component. I don't believe in retribution components. That could be because of my Christian background. I like to not make policy based upon religion, but religion is such a part of one's life that I think one is fooling oneself if you claim you can completely get rid of that. But I don't believe in retribution. I believe in restitution, but not retribution whatsoever. I think retribution just makes for an evil society, but that's my particular view. The Fish says that's the best anti-death penalty argument I've ever heard. I believe it is as well, but there's always a but. There always is a big but, and that's not always on my rear end. What if they're not caught right away and have a pile of evil in their wake? It's still not right. If somebody's helpless before you, you've neutralized the danger to just murder them. That's where you imprison them, where they can't do that again. And perhaps we need a stronger restitution thing. We are very opposed in our culture, and I understand why. And I'm not even saying that this is something I would advocate. It's just a conversation against making people who have been imprisoned work so that they have to provide some kind of monetary restitution to their victims. We view that as a kind of slavery, and it is. But isn't already imprisoning somebody a kind of slavery? And isn't the idea that you forfeited, to a certain extent, some of your freedom rights when you've committed aggression against other people? So why do we draw the line there? Is it because the potential for abuse is so high? I don't know. But I think it's a conversation worth having. Yeah, Reardon says Camus said a lot of things that are absurd. I haven't read them yet, but sometimes, just a broken clock is right twice a day, right? It seems that I've heard enough that there's enough to be of value. And Joy says Nick's a cold fish, but not always wrong. He isn't always wrong. And when he's right, he's usually very right. He's not as much of a cold fish as he'd like to say. But back then, he was really good at holding up that stoic demeanor to the point of I'd be like, man, I'd hate to be in a fight with him as his wife. He'd just be like, okay. It would drive me freaking crazy. But now I realize that was a put on. We've seen his more emotional side. JJ says the death penalty can be defensive. One who dies today cannot kill tomorrow. Neither can someone who's imprisoned. And you can't know the future. You can't. One of my expressions that some of my fans, I'm going to put this on a t-shirt. Remind me for this, because I'm making my t-shirts now. You can't mind the subjunctive. And yeah, some have done it again while it's in prison. But you can't mind the subjunctive. You can't go back in time and murder baby Hitler. Well, I'm going to say something that's going to be really upsetting to some people. And I haven't thought this through. And so I like saying things because sometimes I change my mind. You guys have seen me change my mind so much. You said maybe the answer is in between. They choose death or servitude. And I think I agree with you. But I'm going to take it a bit further. I think one of the worst things in life that can happen to you is to be imprisoned for life. I wouldn't want to live like that. And I think that the whole idea of us preventing prisoners from committing suicide is wrong, and that they should have the right to commit suicide as their way out. Now, I know some people are going to have a lot of ethical problems with that, but I don't think you forfeit your right to suicide just because you've been imprisoned. Well, I agree with this, Reardon, but I think it's a different question of why should the family members of a murdered person have to pay to keep the murderer in prison. I think they should have to earn their own keep. Or charities or certain people should sponsor that. But no, I agree with you there, but I believe that's a different question. Thank you, Jacob, so much for, I just want to put this up here to thank you publicly. Thank you so much for the super chat. It helps make up for not having ad revenue. Super, super appreciate it. You're an officer and a gentleman. And I agree with you here, Corey. The potential for an innocent person to end up doing body-destroying work for their incarceration. I wouldn't favor body-destroying work. I would be in favor of the same type of work you'd be doing on the outside. I'm not talking about hard labor. I'm not talking about torture. I'm talking about being gainfully employed. And I agree with you here, Jacob, and we're going to get into that because there's some great quotes later. And as a Christian, I obviously agree with you on that, but it's difficult. Oh, Reardon says, we talk about, I think later in the show we'll talk about Camus being an absurdist. Okay. Oh, Nathan, I wish you had kept that. Sometimes we write some of our wisest things when we're very, very young, and it's got a certain naivety to it, but it's refreshing as well. Okay, so next to the next clip. This is proving to be great discussion.
Probably against war in that same way. So I have to admit, I don't know much about the political side of Camus.
Well, and I don't think his political side's that interesting or relevant. What I find, sorry to interrupt you, what I find fascinating about Camus and what I think about on a daily basis from him is his insistence that you have to live a life based on conscience, that you have to be accountable to yourself when you put your head on the pillow at the end of the day and ask yourself, did I live a righteous life with integrity, true to my values?
Oh my God, that is like me. I always, when I say to people, they're, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? You know, the people who are arguing with me, I say, I have to look myself in the mirror. That's the only person I'm accountable to. What he said, if that's an accurate representation of Camus' underlying philosophy, that is my underlying philosophy. But again, that doesn't surprise me because that's hard deontologist. I don't care who agrees with me, ever. I have to look myself, I have a mirror here, and be okay with me. Because I can't lie to myself. Now, here's one of those brushes that's from Wish. Look how just cheapy bullshit it is. But I don't have money right now to spend a lot of money on brushes. So I'm going with a Wish brush, and I'm doing my contouring for you guys who don't know. I'm going to look back at comments in a moment, but we're going to go to the next scene because I want to finish this contouring.
Every time I meet a weird person, somebody, to me,
Oh, fuck, that's
heroism
wrong.
is also taking a risk to rebel against mediocrity.
Yeah.
Like in the most simplest of ways, like the license address, like taking a risk to break the little bit of rule that nobody will know about, to take that little bit of a leap of like that little protest against the bureaucracy.
Well, like that Nazi guard
conformity.
where he just spoke out. He's like, "Hey, lady."
But
Yeah.
that's a big one.
Oh, that's a bit sure.
I mean, like literally at the line at Starbucks or something like
Okay.
that. Like even in the tiniest of ways, when I see people, just like it's almost like that little like glimmer in their eye, a wink, like we're in this together. There's all this conformity all around us. That's at a different time could have been Nazi Germany, could have been Stalinist Soviet Union.
Sure.
We're in this together. We're going to rebel against that conformity by just taking the risk, that little bit of risk against mediocrity.
Oh, I so agree. Oh my God, this is turning into a hug fest. I try to live my life that way. It's one reason I have pink hair. I also have a very practical reason why I have pink hair. It was a definite marketing decision. But also, my whole life, I've been doing little acts of rebellion. It's just in my nature, perhaps. I was a born libertarian, which I'm starting to really believe in political determinism. So I always bucked norm and custom in just tiny little acts of rebellion. So I so agree with that. Now this I think is a good brush. Let me look at it. It's an Anu. I just love this brush. Men don't know what makeup, the type of brush you use is so freaking important. That's why I have such a selection of brushes behind me. It spans this whole thing. But let me just buff this in and we'll go to I want to take a look at comments and then we'll go to the next clip. And this is a Morphe palette with, because the ladies have been asking me with all the different things in it. All right, let's go to comments. The interview video is frozen. Okay, hopefully that won't keep happening. Oh, awesome, Nathan. Hopefully they'll watch it. If they don't watch it live, they'll do it afterwards. And Dennis, this is, profound. You may fool the whole world down the pathway of years and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you cheated the man in the glass. Absolutely. That's a great poem. I am going to look that up, Dennis. And no, I have not watched the 1960s TV series The Prisoner. I don't think I have, at least. Okay, we're going to go to the next scene, and I am going to be doing now my highlighting. This is Ofra Highlighter Rodeo Drive, and I use one of these, like, it's another Anu brush, one of these fan brushes.
My hope is that all of us have the possibility for that glimmer, that that risk taking, the leap of faith, or whatever the heck that is, the leap out of the ordinary, out of the conformity, out of the mediocrity.
So this is where you and I disagree. I think a lot of people are not capable of that.
They're accustomed to it. I don't know if they're not capable.
No, I understand your position. I'm disagreeing with it. I'm saying I do
saying
not
they're
think
not
they're capable. I think a lot of people effectively don't have souls. They do not have a conscience in this sense where they're going to look at an issue, bring their critical thinking, and say, all right, I am going to do the right thing, although I'm taking a risk.
I think thinking is involved, or is it just taking that leap? There's something about that basic human spirit. Forget the thinking part. It's just saying, like, I'll take that risk, taking that adventure. The same thing that got people to explore the seas, you know, throughout human civilization, explore land, explore the oceans, like that exploration. Like, we've done stuff this way all this time. I'm going to take a leap.
Is the interview frozen, or is Michael Malice just sitting really still? But as long as the audio is coming through. Okay, I'm doing my blush. This is Marc Jacobs. And I don't know what kind of brush this is, but it's a really nice brush. But I'm just buffing that in. Now, this section really gave me a little bit of turmoil. I don't know who I agree with. And one thing I love that Michael Malice does is where he immediately clarifies, no, I understand what you're saying, I'm just disagreeing with you. That's a great tactic, that people know that you're at least understand what they're saying. Is everyone capable of these small acts of being a hero, either big or small? Or do they effectively, as Michael Malice asserted, which makes me very uncomfortable, or do they effectively not have a soul? I find that very difficult, but my experience in life has been that not everyone is capable of heroism. That there are some people who just they're a mile wide and an inch deep. They're shallow. But I would like to believe that everyone is capable of it in the right circumstances. But if political determinism is true, not everyone is. So I don't really know where I stand on that. And let me just get this on to start to dry in a little bit. It's my under eye concealer. I would love to know what you guys think on that. So let me just get this on. It needs to dry a tiny bit before I buff it in so I can look at comments. And this is Two-Faced Born This Way. Okay, let's see. Well, I know that I'm not a number, I'm a free man. That's from that Iron Maiden song, The Prisoner. So is that what that Iron Maiden song's about? The series, The Prisoner? Doom, 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 doom. Da-na-na-na-na. I'm fucking an Iron Maiden fan so hard. Oh. Yes, it's frozen, but audio's fine. Okay, as long as the audio's fine. I don't know why that happened. Maybe it's the way I extracted it out. Yeah, and I agree with that tactic, H. Reardon, of steel manning. And Sam Harris also really, really advocates that. Okay. I'm going to buff this in with this cool little brush. And this is a cheap-ass brush. And we'll go to the next scene.
And that comes out of nowhere, seemingly.
But those people are the heroes. But I don't think that's universal. I'm going to use a very gauche example. There was a show called Scare Tactics, which was basically a candid camera, but they would scare people. Like they'd have vampires, whatever, and hidden camera and people's reactions. And so but sometimes the prank didn't work out like they expected. So there was one where they were hiring the people who were the marks, the contestants, so to speak, were hired to be a security guard. Okay, and you have to watch this factory overnight, and you get paid. And what the setup was, some people were breaking out of the factory in the middle of the night, like in rags, and they were saying they were keeping us prisoner here, like blah blah, and just watch the person's reaction to this. And there was one security guard where he basically forced them back into the building, and they're working us 24/7. We're getting beaten. He's like, I'm here to do a job, get back in there. And you watch this, and it never even enters his head to be like, something's wrong here. He was given his orders, he's following his orders, and to me, that is not uncommon. And that person, although they look like you and I, there's something essentially human missing with them. Now, very quickly, the reaction is, well, it's one step from there to Nazism. I don't think it's something that I'm not saying this person should be killed, but I'm just saying to expect that every human being has the capacity to have that defiance, especially at a cost of their own life. That I think is not realistic. But at the same time, I feel like an octopus on the eighth hand. It is those few of us, or if you want to include me in this, who do make these tiny little protests, who look the other way when someone is hungry who's stealing food from the supermarket, right? It's like, all right, like I'm going to pretend I didn't see anything. Those little elements of heroism are what move humanity forward and demonstrate the validity of the human experience, whereas everyone else is kind of like scenery.
I think almost everybody in the world can derive deep meaning and pleasure from having done those courageous acts. And I also think they have the capacity to do them, to discover that meaning and happiness.
So you're the cynic. Then why aren't they doing it?
They haven't gotten a chance to, like, I've never tried LSD or DMT. You haven't gotten the chance to try this amazing journey, which is taking the risk.
That's
and
nonsense.
rebellion.
Because as you just said 2 minutes ago, everyone has that chance every day to do the right thing.
We have the chance to do a lot of things and we don't realize. There's a lot of stuff right in front of our nose that we don't realize.
Right.
That you have to kind of wake up to it. Sometimes you need the catalyst. There needs to be some kind of thing that happens that wakes you up.
Okay, interesting. First of all, I love that show, Scare Tactics. If you can watch episodes on YouTube, you will piss your pants. It's so funny. They fuck with people so hard, and it is freaking hilarious. There's one with these dog shock collars. Oh my God, it's hilarious. I never seen the one he was talking about. That would be disturbing when the guy forces they're actors, but the people who were being forced to work back into the factory. But I think Michael Malice did a sleight of hand there. Michael Malice said, well, I don't think everyone has it in them to do these acts of heroism, particularly when their life is on the line. That's different than saying everyone doesn't have the capability. I do think there's only a very few people who have the capability to be martyrs. I'm not so sure I have that capability. I think that is a very few people. But when you go down to the smaller and smaller acts of heroism, I'm going to agree with Lex that everyone has the opportunity given the right circumstance. They might only do it once. I'm actually going to do an example from Xena Warrior Princess, as I often do. I'm trying to think of, she had a love interest. It was this black guy. I can't remember his name, but it was towards the beginning of the series. And, you know, she was trying to convince him to turn his life to good. And he finally died doing the one act of good. Marcus, that was his name. And he asked, is this what you meant? And of course, that would be a martyrdom act. But I think that does demonstrate something we intuit about our lives, that everyone has at least some capability to do the right thing. I'm very uncomfortable with Malice saying some people are basically soulless, and he goes, well, I'm not saying they should be killed. I do agree with the criticism he sensed was coming is when you start making some people less than human, because I think the capability to be heroic is actually an attribute of being human, it is just a small step to having humans and unhumans, and I will not go down that path. So I think Malice is absolutely wrong there. In fact, scarily wrong there. Okay. So I've come to a conclusion. And I do not know why the video is frozen, but they were not very moving very much. So it doesn't make it, we're not losing anything as long as we're getting the video. So, yeah, I enjoy these little weird outfits as well. Okay, so what do I need to do next on my face? I think I'm moving on to the eyeshadow. I'm doing a weird look today. I probably shouldn't have put on the blush because I'm trying to do like somewhat of a white snow queen look. But that's okay. I need a little bit of color. I don't look good completely gothed out.
So maybe it's useful to talk about a few contrasting thinkers in there. So
Sure.
one is Leo Tolstoy,
Oh yeah.
who I think not many people know is an anarchist,
Yes.
a Christian anarchist.
Christian anarchist. Yeah.
So he came to despise government for its deceit and its violence. But to him, the Christian principles of nonviolence, I think, are important.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of pacifist kind
Yeah.
of mindset of it's better to someone to punch you than to punch them back.
So he's, in that way, at least I read, he influenced MLK and Gandhi. What do you think about this flavor, color of the anarchist flag of nonviolence, nonviolent opposition?
I will put the caveat that it bothers me when people bring up MLK because he's become so corporate,
Yeah.
and everyone just brings him up without knowing about him. One of the things that Martin Luther King did so very well was that he forced people to face the consequences of what they were putting forward. You want to be racist, you want to be for Jim Crow, you want to be for segregation. Okay, it's easy for you to do that from your living room. Now turn on your news and you see men and women in suits being attacked by dogs, being attacked by fire hoses and beaten by cops just so they could sit on the front of the bus. And now for a lot of people who were still racist, who were still had animus toward black people are watching this, and it's going to be a lot harder to be like, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with human beings, even ones I regard as somehow bad or inferior, to be beaten and attacked by trained dogs, and they're not doing anything in response. That strikes to, I think, a very basic nature of, especially American, like, okay, whatever you're for, I'm not for people getting beaten and attacked when they're not really doing anything. So I think pacifism is something that's very easy to make fun of, but people don't underestimate how powerful it is for someone to say, you can do what you want to me. I'm not going to fight you back. I just want to live peacefully and have the same rights as you. And to say, screw you, you should get beaten. That's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow.
Okay, I loved this section. And I cut out the context, though. They're talking about the various anarchist thinkers that are in Michael Malice's book. So they brought up Tolstoy. Man after my own heart, most of you know by now, but some of you listening may not, is that I'm a pacifist. I will argue for your right to lethal self-defense and right to bear arms and all of that, but I don't do that. I am a pacifist. My husband is not. I'm a pacifist not because of my libertarianism, but because of my Christian faith. So I really loved that he brought up Tolstoy and Christian pacifism, but what I loved even more was that he acknowledged it's very easy to make fun of that view, but that there is a power to it, and he completely identified the power. The power to not resist forces people to own their violence. And that's how Christianity spread, where it said the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church, because many people who participated in killing these whole families of Christians were so convicted by the act and by the strength of their faith to do nothing in defense that they became Christians and missionaries themselves. Now, I know this seems counterintuitive, but I'm putting on white eyeliner with the white, because I'm doing the white look today. It's an experiment. So I'm trying to do the little white wing here. So give me a second, because this will need to dry. But that's interesting, isn't it? Because it is showing up. I wouldn't think it would show up, but this white is brighter than the white eyeshadow. Okay, let's let that dry and take a look at comments here. Hopefully I didn't shock anyone with saying I'm a pacifist. Dennis says, people have so much capacity to be unvirtuous, it's always a blessing to find someone who chooses virtue. Correct. It's very easy to be unvirtuous as well. H. Reardon said there are many Christians who are not pacifists. Most Christians are not pacifists. I think they're wrong. Just my particular opinion. I think when Jesus said, do you not know that I could ask my Father and he would send down thousands of angels to spare me from this fate? Christ on the cross is the ultimate example of pacifism. And also the doctrine of the image of God and how destroying an image bearer can't do it. Yeah, Kyle B says, I'm not so sure. Karen, I'm slipping into the black pill territory. The Ashi, I'm not familiar with this. Says conformity experiment shows how willing people are to go along with the majority. Most of the time, yes, but that doesn't mean all of the time. So I don't know. I can't go down the black pill route. I'm with Michael Malice on that. It's funny though. Michael Malice just said, you just brought up a contradiction, Kyle. And Michael, he just said he doesn't believe everyone has the capacity, but yet later on in the show, he decries and denounces those who are black-pilled and said the only way to be is white-pill, or you're a cynic, and he abhors cynicism. Interesting. Okay, so let's go to the next clip. See if I think that eyeliner has dried. I'm going to put some along the tip as well. Just the tip, though.
So I think he was really, and Gandhi, of course, as well, were excellent in that regard. There's a little bit of Machiavellianism to it. You know, they've both been beatified, they're regarded as saints, but their strategy worked very, very well for their purposes. So I think just all of us, when you see someone, you know, in this kind of Christian, you know, I know you're Ron, obviously it's not think very highly of Christianity, but if you see someone who's willing to, you know, take a punch and just say, you could do whatever you want to me, I'm not going to hurt somebody else, instinctively, and maybe this is kind of a hack, most people want to side with that guy, step in between and be like, oh, okay, let's take a step back because whatever led to this is not tenable. We need to go back to the drawing board if the consequence is people are having these as a result of my decisions and actions. So I think that aspect of anarchism is very, very, in certain contexts, healthy and much smarter and more sophisticated than people give it credit for. And let's also point out that Tolstoy wrote War and Peace, and he wrote Anna Karenina. So this was not some naive or innocent, whatever word you want to use. He knew the nature of evil. Yeah. He knew how bad things get. So he wasn't saying at all that human beings are inherently nice and kind. He was saying it's much more effective to not fight back and to force them to face that. I'll give you another example. I was on the show Trigonometry, and I was talking to the hosts, and one of them talked about how someone he knew had been in the Gulag, or his mom was born in the Gulag, grandma. And after Stalin died and the Soviet Union liberalized and lots of the people in the Gulags were freed by Khrushchev and so on and so forth, I didn't know this. Many of some of the guards of the Gulags killed themselves because they had genuinely believed that everyone in these camps was there for a reason. And when they found out that these people were completely innocent, didn't even have trials, and that they were the ones forced them to work themselves to death and starve, they couldn't deal with that guilt. So when you are a pacifist or non-retaliatory, and you're forcing someone who's using force, like, look what you're doing, look what you've become. For some people don't care. You know, like the guy in Scare Tactics, like I mentioned earlier. Where for a lot of others, they're going to be like, okay, is this who I wanted to grow up to be? They will have that little flame of conscience that you and I talked about earlier. There will be like, how did I get to the point where there's this lady who wants to ride the bus and she's, you know, lovely dressed, put together, and I have sending a dog on her?
Okay, let me just get this on my water line. That other pencil wasn't working. Not all pencils work well on water lines. This is MAC, and, you know, MAC is always good. Okay. You can see with this white eyeliner really where my eyes are hooded. You see right here where you can see the lid up to here, and then it disappears from here to here? That's my hood. You see? And that, though it gets worse with age, isn't age-related. Like, even if you look at that gal who was the actress in Hunger Games, I can't remember her name, who played Katniss. So her eyes are super, super hooded, and she's obviously has access to the best plastic surgeons and is very, very young. Can't remember her name right now. But okay, that's some white eyes, isn't it? We're going to make them even whiter, because I'm going for a shock look today, I think. I need to pull out my my eyelashes. We'll take a look at comments again as well. H. Reardon says, I came not to bring peace, but a sword. That doesn't sound like pacifism. I don't believe that is talking about a literal sword. And it's also talking about what Jesus came to do. And while I'm saying God's people should be pacifists, I don't believe God is a pacifist. But God is the only one who has the right to take life, in my view. Okay, well, before we start another clip, because I don't want this noise in the background, I got out my eyelash glue, but I need to find my white ooh, first one. First guess. Here's my white magnetic eyelashes, but I'm not going to use, well, maybe, I don't want to put black eyeliner on, so I'm going to use glue on magnetic eyelashes, because my magnetic liner is black, and I don't want to add any black to this look. Okay, while I am doing that, we will do, need to get my little eyelash adherer things. Okay.
For Tolstoy, it seems like anarchism, from the individual perspective, is silencing the rest of the world and listening to the for him probably God-given voice of conscience.
Yes.
And so that's what it means to embody anarchism for him.
And to embody Christianity, I would think he would say.
But he would see those as basically,
yes, correct.
So in terms of forms of government, the Christian government is one that's no government.
Yeah, correct.
What do you think about that as advice for an individual? Turn the other cheek. Do you think, I tend to believe that that's a really good way to live.
I think it's very underrated, and this is me talking. I think a lot of times when someone, let's suppose you're having an argument, but you have to pick your battles, right? Let's suppose you're having a heated argument and someone says something very cruel to you. We are tempted to double down and hit back twice as hard. Right. But if it's someone who at all cares about you, if they're just in the moment, and you just stop and you just say, did you hear what you just said to me? For some cases, that person will take a step back and be like, just like when I snapped at Michael at Bitstein years ago, I'd be like, wow, okay, this is bad. This is bad. I'm sorry. And they kind of, it's kind of like they have to get to 10 before they Control Alt Delete, to use your language.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Buffer overflow. I appreciate that.
And for some, they're gonna just twist the knife. Yeah. But I think this is a very useful technique. And also, you can also sleep well at night, because you could be like, as much as this person tried to hurt me, I still didn't reciprocate. And yeah, I took that punch and it sucks, but at least I never said anything that I could feel guilty about.
Yep, absolutely agree. And I really like that Michael Malice recognized the power of pacifism. and the moral virtues of it. Normally people just like to argue that you're being immoral if you're a pacifist, which to me is just weird. Okay, and I'm going to get to comments here in a second. Let me just at least put the glue on this other set of white eyelashes to let it start to tack up. So this is quite a white look, isn't it? I am going somewhere with this. I don't mean going out. I mean, I have a goal. I have a look I'm trying to achieve. Okay. But these eyelashes are so... You know what? I'm taking this one set off. I'm going to put it back on. They're a little too long. They went into my corner eye too much and was really irritating. So I need to cut them a little shorter. So I am going to, because I have small eyes. So on this other set I'm putting on, I'm going to cut them about there. Okay, let's try this again. Let me just stick these on. Okay, those fit much better now that I cut them. It was really irritating my inner corner. And I'll put on more white eyeliner in a minute. Trying to get that down into the corner there. Down. There we go. Okay, that's much better. Let me take a look at comments, which H. Reardon says, I'm not sure what he means. Sounds hypocritical if I'm saying God can do something man can't. But let me tell you, when it comes to religious beliefs, I say my position. I don't argue about it. Everyone is free to disagree. Religion is not something I'm ever interested in arguing. So I'm pretty satisfied just with stating my position and leaving it at that. Though I'm always happy to clarify, I don't really wish to debate. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Correct, Joe Bowers, Proverbs, I think it's 15:12, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Let me have, I think I have another. How is pacifism that results in death not just suicide? I think suicide is a very specific example of you actively killing yourself. It's the difference between euthanizing somebody and simply turning off life support. And medical Christian ethicists has always seen the difference on that. And for a Christian, you know where you're going, and you're never going to... The thing is, God has numbered your days. Whatever day you are meant to go, you are meant to go. And I don't see anywhere in the Bible that it says you're obligated to fight for your own life in that way. In fact, Jesus said, blessed is the man who lays down his life for his brother. And that's in fact what Jesus did. Did Jesus commit suicide? I don't think so. He could have fought back. And in fact, he said he did when he told Peter to put down his sword. After Peter cut off the Roman guard's ear, Jesus healed the ear and rebuked Peter. Let me get that down in the corner. There we go. Just need to let that dry for a little. Whoa. Popped right back up. Maybe I didn't let the glue sit long enough. Let's do that again. Plus this is old glue. So let's let that tack up a little bit and go to the next scene. Oh, let me remove that comment from the screen before I go to the next screen. Here we go. Oh, I want to go.
Exactly. Do you think that's ultimately a good way to implement anarchy in your personal life?
Implementing anarchy in your personal life just means respecting people's boundaries. It means not forcing people to do things they otherwise wouldn't want to do.
I think you then have to take case by case. Like there's so many human interactions that are required for life.
Sure.
And there's tension and all those kinds of things. It's not always.
Am I being naive or innocent?
You're being so naive. No,
Should I put the hat on? The hat's on the other head now.
Okay, sorry. Oh, I can't get this one on right. That always happens to me. I get one eyelash on right, and then I can't get the other one on right. Story of my fucking life. I don't really know what I need to comment there. I think it almost speaks for itself, but I think I clipped it out because he was beginning to give some good definitions of anarchy, which I think is very, very misunderstood. Okay, let me try popping this on. Okay, I think the problem was I was just trying to do it only with my fingers and rather not with the tool. Okay, let's just let that dry. Let me not fuck with it. Let me take a look at comments and then go on to the next thing. I'd be glad to. I just didn't have time to go to the Christian Hub this year. I was just so busy being overwhelmed. But yeah, I didn't spend any time at the Christian Hub at Porkfest this year, and I would have liked to. Wasn't it called the Ecclesia? An ecclesia is Greek for gathering. The church is called the Ecclesia in the Bible. Okay, let's go to the next scene.
So anarchism is opposed to hierarchies.
Well, that's left anarchism, yeah, anarcho-communism, yeah.
The state.
But there are many hierarchies that are not the state. We have a hierarchy here. This is your show. I'm deferential to you.
Right, but they're, okay, rigid hierarchies.
Forced hierarchies is the...
Forced hierarchies.
Yes.
Forced hierarchies, okay.
Yes.
So do you think it's possible that humans, when left on their own accord, they form hierarchies naturally?
Yes, inevitably, in my opinion.
Inevitably.
Which is why I disagree with the left anarchists. I think it's not a coherent thing to argue for non-hierarchical relationships, even in theory. It doesn't make sense to me. And I know the old school anarchists will call me stupid or uninformed, but I've never been able to even wrap my head around this claim that you could have relationships without hierarchy.
Right. So I guess there's a certain sense in which we're living in anarchism now. And I don't mean just like because the nations, as you've said, are in anarchism relative to each other. But isn't the United States just a collective that was formed in anarchy? And this is just the collective that we're operating under, this hierarchy that was naturally formed.
It wasn't, well, the United States was not naturally formed. It was formed by force and by fiat. But to your point, I stress this throughout the book. I always say this: anarchism is not a location, it's a relationship. So yeah, you and I do have a hierarchy in that this is your show, but neither of us really has an authority over the other. Like, I'm here voluntarily. You can kick me out if you want. I can leave at any want. Neither of us has the power to force the other to be in this relationship we've chosen. My lawyer, I defer to his judgment. He's not forcing me to do it. He gives me his advice and I could take it or leave it. Same with the doctor. So there is a clearly like who's in charge and who's not in charge, but they're not in a position to impose their will on everybody else. And you could very easily see John is Stephanie's lawyer and Stephanie is John's doctor. And in each of those contexts, one has this position of ostensible authority over the other. So anarchism is in fact not some utopian crazy thing. It is the norm of human relationships where you meet people, you're not necessarily equal. Someone's going to be taller, someone's going to be stronger, someone's smarter, wealthier with others, but you're not at all thinking, I am here and I could tell you what to do, and you are legally or morally obligated to follow my wishes. That is the basis of anarchism.
Okay. Setting up my lipstick here. Absolutely agree. I think the left anarchists are out of their tree when they say there won't be hierarchies. Jordan Peterson is absolutely correct there. In the order of the lobster, there will always be hierarchies. Hierarchies are inevitable. They are hard baked into all human relations. Where did I put my lip brush? I'm going to have to do this without my lip brush if I can't find it. I just had it. Is it in here still? Nope. I took it out. Oh, no. Here it is. Found it. MAC. My MAC lip brush. So, yeah, I really, really love that he pointed out that hierarchies will exist, and they actually are performatively part of anarchy. Okay, let me just get some of this lipstick on. Weird, when you put this purple, it's kind of like a purple-red mix over white, it's more red. See, isn't that weird? And this is another MAC shade. I'm a big fan of MAC. This isn't really the color I wanted, though. Let's see if I have a darker purple to put on. I wanted a darker lip. So let me see if I can find a purple that's darker. I probably should have just went with red. I don't have many purples. So let me see. Huh. I thought I had a dark purple in here. I need a dark purple lipstick. So you want to know what? Nope, that's another red. I am such a... Here's a light purple. Let me see. Yeah, that brings out the white better. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go to comments and see where to put my glasses. Here they are. See where they're at. Oh, Dennis says you didn't know I was so philosophically religious. Yes. In a Manitou community, there is no hierarchy. Well, and manatees, really, I don't know if that's true or not, but I also know they get their asses ran over all the time. But we are not manatees. I think we are more like the lobsters. And I think it's quite obvious to each of us that hierarchy is natural, and I think it's good. I don't think it's a necessary evil. I think it's an actual good. All right. Hopefully, I will not get feedback when I take off these headphones. You guys let me know if you're hearing any kind of feedback, because I want to put on a wig. See, I told you I had somewhere I was going with this. I'm really going for the all-white look here. So let's go to the next scene.
So in what way is the United States imposing by force something on you, do you think?
If you leave your house, you will go to jail. My money being taken from you by taxation.
Right. But don't you have the freedom to not operate under that?
No, but that's like, yeah, like technically if someone comes up to you and mugs you and says your money or your life, you are making a choice. But what the anarchist argument is, they're not in a position to force you to make that choice. That is not morally binding, even though they have practically the power to force you into that dilemma.
But you have the freedom to live under the United States or not. So even...
I see. Yeah, the argument is if you don't like it, leave. Right?
Not necessarily leave like geographically, but there's ways to live outside the force of the United States. There's ways, it's just very difficult to operate that way.
But that's like saying you could outrun the mugger, which is true. But the issue is, does that mugger have the right to tell you at gunpoint, you're either giving me your money or I'm going to shoot you, or secret plan C, you get to run away? Is that person a moral actor? And the anarchist answer is never. And just one more thing. The anarchist view is the difference between that mugger and the government is only an air of legitimacy. Literally, they're morally identical.
Oh. excuse me, can you hear me? Okay, what I did to try to prevent feedback, and I want to look in comments to see if there was feedback. No, my eyelashes are on. They're not falling off. That is, I hope JJ was still here. That was Michael Malice pretty much saying, but much more eloquently, the same thing I did to the argument of, well, if you don't like it, you can just leave. And he goes to the fact that the people whom you might want to leave from are not moral actors. They have zero legitimate authority. And in fact, you are being an aggressor if you claim that somebody is willingly subjecting themselves to something simply because they don't run from the mugger. That is just not a moral statement, because there's no morality to the mugger. Now, again, it might be expeditious for them to do that. They might choose to do that within their own moral, calculations, but there's no obligation to do so. And it is not an ethical statement to say, well, you can just do that. So therefore you are choosing to be aggressed upon. That is the ultimate in victim blaming. So I think I want to play that statement from him again, because it was so important and it's been the subject of discussion, and I can get my wig organized.
So in what way is the United States imposing by force something on you, do you think?
If you leave your house, you will go to jail. My money being taken from you via taxation.
Right. But don't you have the freedom to not operate under that?
No, but that's like, yeah, like technically if someone comes up to you and mugs you and says your money or your life, you are making a choice. But what the anarchist argument is, they're not in a position to force you to make that choice. That is not morally binding, even though they have practically the power to force you into that dilemma.
But you have the freedom to live under the United States or not. So even...
I see. Yeah, the argument is if you don't like it, leave, right?
Not necessarily leave like geographically, but there's ways to live outside the force of the United States. There's ways, it's just very difficult to operate that way.
But that's like saying you can outrun the mugger, which is true. But the issue is, does that mugger have the right to tell you at gunpoint, you're either giving me your money or I'm going to shoot you, or secret plan C, you get to run away? Is that person a moral actor? And the anarchist answer is never. And just one more thing. The anarchist view is the difference between that mugger and the government is only an air of legitimacy. Literally, they're morally identical.
Okay, let me put on my glasses. So what do y'all think? See, it's the Ice Queen, the Ice Queen look. And again, though, JJ, we just fundamentally disagree. I just wanted you to hear Malice say it. I don't agree it's a free society. In a free society, you would have a choice, because you have no obligation to run from aggressors, to simply not have the aggression. I do not agree. You saying 10 times I have doesn't change the fact that I have not. It's like saying this is a free alley. If you don't want to get mugged, you could just leave. Nobody would accept that. If you don't want to get raped, don't go down this alley. It's a free alley because you don't have to go down it. But the fact is, if you have the right to go down it, then it is, in fact, aggression. So to just say you can leave is an unethical statement, in my view. And you do have the freedom in the case of a mugger. He gave you a choice. You could have also not gone down that alley if you'd known it was dangerous, which most people do. Let's continue to the next one.
So is it possible that every hierarchy that gets big enough and successful enough such that it can monopolize a bunch of services it provides, isn't it always going to be amoral, in your sense, the way the United States government is amoral?
Well, I don't want to say just like the United States government is immoral, because that implies the United States government is uniquely or especially immoral.
Right, government.
I just want to clarify that, because I know you didn't mean that, and I don't want that to be the implication. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
So like, won't every
Okay, so that's right. That's progressive economics.
Yeah.
So the argument is, in any market, at a certain point, things tend to centralize, and then that organization de facto can dictate price, can dictate so on and so forth. That is completely ahistorical. If you look at any market, the trend is always towards decentralization. The music industry, right? When we were kids, there were 4 or 5 record labels. They were the ones who made all the songs that you're going to see in the Billboard Top 100 with a few exceptions. Now anyone can go to direct to market. If you look at TV stations, right? It went from CBS, NBC, ABC, then you got Fox, then you had cable, which is 100. Now you have satellite, which have thousands around the world, and you have YouTube, which is literally infinite. So as technology improves and as wealth increases, which is a function of free enterprise, you are going to always have more and more choice, even within a monopoly. Coca-Cola, right? This is an example I used, I think, in the New Right. When we were kids, every terrible comedian would be like, oh, now they've got diet caffeine-free Coke. What's next? And it's like, yeah, that's good. You want to have, what was his name? Kamen, the guy who invented the Segway. If you go, Dean Kamen, if you go into some restaurants right now, you will have those machines. You have like 80 kinds of Cokes, and then you could have whatever flavor you want to add to it, grape, cherry, lemon, lime, so on and so forth. So in any field, you're going to have more and more competition. You're going to have less competition and less choices when the state gets involved, because the state wants control. The state wants one big neck with one leash around it, and that way it could just pull that dog in one direction or another. And you saw this last year with the lockdown.
Okay. Let me just, and I haven't seen any comments about the Snow Queen. You guys are just used to me doing weird things. To continue to address some of JJ's comments, though we do just keep going in circles, and that's fine. I don't mind just repeating my normative position. You can choose to live in a community with better police, or I could choose to hire my own type of police here, but the government prohibits me from doing that, thereby not a free society. You shouldn't have to move in order to adequately protect your rights. And you said if you were willing to pay for it, some people aren't able to pay for it, but they would be able to form a community police force that overtook all of those functions, but the state will not let them do that because the state has monopolized the right of rights protection, and that is not an ethical thing for them to do. And thank you, Joy. So it was something I had in my head, and I kind of like it. I think it's something different, particularly with, maybe I do have some white glasses I wish I could find, because I think it would look pretty cool with white glasses as well. I might go right behind this screen here while the next clip is playing, because that's where my glasses stash is. But let's go on. Oh, but I kind of missed talking about what Michael was talking about. The argument that Lex is getting to is that wouldn't in anarchy, the types of systems that arise, wouldn't they be functionally the same as government? And wouldn't there be less and less choices? And that's what Michael was saying there, saying, no, it changes to more choices. That's what the free market brings. And Michael Downs, I just put on different looks in all of these Get Ready With Me's. I have all kinds of wigs that I like trying on, and I just try them. It's not going to stay this way. It's pretty much just a look for this video to make it fun. Okay, let's go to the next clip. I'm going to see if I can find my white glasses.
So I guess I'm trying to get to the difference between the state and what you would naturally want in anarchy, which is like a security company.
Sure.
All of those things, they will, as they become successful, start looking more and more like the state, because you get to elect, you give them money, they
I got you.
They have leaders.
Yeah.
Like, what's the difference between a government and a very successful service provider in anarchism?
This gets a little confused in America because big companies necessarily are in hand with the government, ended up in bed with them. The answer to this question is a long, complicated one, and thankfully it's all in the Anarchist Handbook. There was an essay by Murray Rothbard, who Dave Smith is. This is the essay that converted Dave Smith. So maybe it's not as good as it could have been otherwise, called Anatomy of the State.
Yeah.
And Murray Rothbard points out that state is the only agency in a country which gets its goods through force. The state is the only agency that is not a producer, but inherently a parasite, because it does not get its money voluntarily, but through taxation and by imposing its values on a country. That is what makes a state uniquely different from, let's suppose, an Amazon or a Barnes & Noble or a Target. Jeff Bezos does not have the authority or the moral legitimacy to get an army and go into somebody's house, whereas Andrew Cuomo or Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump, and Barack Obama certainly do.
Okay, just putting this back up. So he was talking about the functional and definitional difference between a company that becomes very successful in an anarchy and the state. And I thought he explained that quite well. And to keep repeating, JJ, that you can leave doesn't address the moral question of you don't have to. Again, nobody disagrees that it might be expeditious to leave, and that you certainly can. That's never been the question. So it's like, it's arguing a point that's not being made, unless the point is you're agreeing to it unless you leave. And then we just fundamentally disagree, because you have a right to be where you're at, and the aggressors do not get their aggression cleansed. It's almost like the stand your ground. You're allowed to stand your ground and defend your rights, or just complain where you are at. There is no obligation for you to avoid the aggression. The obligation is upon the aggressor not to aggress. I could not find my white glasses, but check out these glasses I found I forgot I had. Those are something, aren't they? I completely forgot I had these. Now, that's a bit much for this look, I think. I am not sure. Oh, I'd love to do a Joan Jett look. I'll need to look at some of her pictures, see how she does her makeup, and get an appropriate wig. I would love to do that. I do have a Betty Page one. And governments do not function as a market because they are allowed to coerce people, and markets cannot coerce people. Governments, when they're not coercing and allow competition, then are not the state. There is a definitional difference between the state and government. Anarchists actually are not, and I think Michael will get into this without the definitions, are not opposed to government, because there can be such a thing as voluntary government. We are opposed to the state, which is a coercive entity over a specified geographical area.
So I guess I'm trying to get to the difference between the state and what you would naturally want in anarchy, which is like a security company.
Sure.
All of those things, they will, as they become successful, start looking more and more like the state, because you get to elect, you give them money, they
I got you.
They have leaders.
Yeah.
Like, what's the difference between a government and a very successful service provider in anarchism?
This gets a little confused in America, because big companies necessarily are in hand with the government, ended up in bed with them. The answer to this question is a long, complicated one, and thankfully it's all in the Anarchist Handbook. There was an essay by Murray Rothbard.
We did this
Dave
one
Smith.
already, so I'm going to skip.
This is the essay that converted Dave Smith.
Sorry.
So maybe it's not as good as it could have been otherwise.
As you observed, I'm a fairly practical guy. I want to get things done. I want to get them.
Okay, we are done with the Michael Malice stuff. I have a few other clips, so you guys can, I'm going to look at comments, see if we have anything to still wrap up with the Michael Malice stuff. I've just got this Biden clip, which is horrifying, and then a few from Dave Smith. 4 from Dave Smith, and then we will be done for the day. But let me make sure I have addressed everything I want to with the Michael Malice stuff. It looks that way. Somebody bump a comment if I missed it. So let's move on. We're going to do this horrifying clip from Biden. He is so incompetent, and not that anybody should be president, but he's definitely should not be president. And then 4 clips from Dave Smith. And before we go, I just remind everyone again, if you're able and have the means and enjoy this program, please consider sending over a super chat or supporting me in some other way. Let's now continue listening to senile Joe Biden.
Done consistent with what we promised the American people. And in order to do that, in a 50-50 Senate, we've got to get to the place where I get 50 votes so that the Vice President of the United States can break the tie, or I get 51 votes without her. And so I'm going to say something outrageous. I have never been particularly poor at calculating how to get things done in the United States Senate. So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, we're going to get a lot done. And if we...
Did he just, like, what happened there? That was weird. Like, oh my God, this guy has the codes to the nukes. And he's like, and if you want to get things done and, well, you know, well, anyway. Holy shit. Holy senile grandpa. What the actual hell? Ah, I'm going to go here and, ooh, more of the, oh, and check out the nails. Aren't those lovely? And they go with the look well, I think, the blue. So let's go to the first Dave Smith clip.
I sent off a series of tweets the other day, and I think one of them rubbed some of the more patriotic members of my following the wrong way, when I was just kind of mocking the idea of celebrating the 4th of July. And I just want to make it clear, I wasn't mocking, like, I celebrate it too, and I think it's a great day, and there's all these incredible, like, themes that go along with it. I was just kind of suggesting that it's kind of funny to see a country that's gone through what we've gone through in the last 18 months celebrating independence and freedom from a tyrannical government. It's just, there's an irony there that's kind of strange. And it's particularly strange seeing the people who cheered on everything that the government did over the last year plus celebrate.
Pretty soon.
Okay. Excuse me. How true is that? I didn't even occur to me. Okay, I'm not a big 4th of July person, so it probably wouldn't have occurred to me. I've never been rah-rah, mom, apple pie, red, white, and blue. Not my thing, even before I was a libertarian. In fact, I'm very, very opposed to jingoistic nationalism, which I think all libertarians are, but not because I'm a libertarian. Actually, I stopped saying the pledge and doing the flag rituals about 5 years before I was a libertarian, because I became convicted on religious grounds that it is idolatry. And a lot of Christians throughout history have also come to this conclusion. Funny enough, a lot of them are also the same ones who come to the conclusion of pacifism, where it is not appropriate for Christians to do a worship ritual to a flag or to a country. You don't put your hand over your heart and swear allegiance to a fucking flag. The only person I swear allegiance to is the man God, Jesus Christ. So I stopped saying the pledge and doing the jingoistic rituals 5 years before I was a libertarian. Now I have political reasons to abstain. So if I became an atheist tomorrow, I would still abstain. And similarly, if I became not a libertarian tomorrow, I would abstain still on religious grounds. My grounds are primarily religious, which is why I will not even do them in order to save feelings, or, you know, because it's expedient in a situation to do so. If I only held them on political grounds, I would break those rules if it would help my companions I might be with at a sporting event, say, feel more comfortable. If I would at least stand my ass up instead of sitting down, which can draw a lot of unwanted attention at like rodeos or events that are very full of a lot of more redneck types that are very, very patriotic. But because it's a religious conviction, I do not bend to anything. In fact, I've often considered, what am I going to do? I am running for town council next year. And the town council has a little worship ritual every time, and the whole town council stands up to participate. If I got elected, how am I going to handle that? And I said, well, would I just make an exception to go along to get along? And no, I can't do that before God. So I suppose I would have to give an explanation each meeting as to either come in late or why I do not stand and perform the flag ritual. Right now, I'm just in the audience. And really, we sit towards the back and everyone's facing forward. I don't think probably the town clerk notices that I remain seated, but I don't think anyone else even notices. I don't do it to make a spectacle out of myself. And in fact, if I remember that they're going to happen, I try to come in late after the flag ritual has already been done. But it's interesting, yeah. So I did not even notice this 4th of July, the hypocrisy. Do I got lipstick? Keith, I'm always so paranoid. No, but you would tell me, wouldn't you? Because, God, if I ever... I hate that. But anyway, so I didn't even notice this 4th of July, but he's right. How hypocritical. Yeah, land of the free. Boom, boom, fireworks, sparklers. Yay, we just got locked in our house without protest, basically. I mean, few of us were complaining. But really, you would think, with the government imprisoning people in their houses for months at a time, that there would have been actual revolution. Been justified. But there wasn't, which is why I told Wayne, you still think people are going to do something when they come for our guns? No, they're not. No, they're not. Nobody's going to do shit.
But I will say that I really do. I like the 4th of July, not just as like a, an excuse to have a barbecue and watch some fireworks and stuff like that. But I like the holiday. I like the spirit of it. I like the idea of there's a holiday based around the Declaration of Independence and based around secession and all these things that I really like. I know there are some right-wingers out there who make the loyalist argument that we never should have had the revolution. We never should have.
Well, we should have stayed British.
That we should have stayed British.
Who the hell makes that argument? Those people are idiots.
Well, there's some smart people who make the argument, but I reject that.
They're still loyal to the Queen?
Well, they're not, but they think we all should be. But I will say that a lot of the argument kind of centers around the idea that it wasn't like King George wasn't really as tyrannical as the founders made him out to be and all of this stuff. But I always kind of fall back on even if the government, even if you make the argument, which I'm not convinced of, but even if you make the argument that the government isn't as tyrannical as some people are claiming, I think those people still have a right to secede from that government if they don't want to be a part of it. And that's basically what the Declaration of Independence states. And go read the Declaration of Independence, man. However you feel, it is a badass document. Just a badass document. Like a group of people telling their government, like, no, we have the right to say no. You are not our government anymore. And then, they brought a war to him, which was, that was unfortunate. But hey, they stood and they fought. Anyway, it's I also just like the idea of secession in general, and it's kind of cool that we have this national holiday celebrating that.
Agreed. That's why I say Happy Treason Day. And if you take the Declaration of Independence seriously, which I do, you should believe in secession down to the individual. Because it says government only exists by the consent of the governed. I do not consent. And my statement always is the status. So I quote the Declaration of Independence. I say I do not consent. Now what? And the hamster just starts going on the wheel, and all kinds of weird excuses come out. I still don't consent. And it is a fact that all men are born with certain inalienable rights. And a non-consensual government, and it doesn't mean consent by 50% or a majority, however we're going to parliamentarily define that. It's consent down to the individual. I do not consent, and I never will. Now what?
The commies are guilty of, where they are working out these plans of how to organize society, completely removed from the actuality, from the reality of the beast, you know? Like the commies used to like make these arguments when people would talk about like incentive problems, you know? Like they'd be like, well, if everybody's equal and everybody's paid the same, who would rather, like, who chooses to be the garbage man rather than the artist? Right? Like who does that if we're all making the same wage? Like the way that the market kind of, you know, manages this issue
Is that it pays
like,
the garbage man way more.
yeah, like the garbage man's gonna get like $80K a year plus benefits plus all this shit, and the artist you might starve. Like you might make money, but you also might not. So that right there kind of mitigates that, you know, that issue. That, well, the person who's a really shitty artist, they're gonna be like, I don't think I should go into art because I'll probably starve. So I'm a shitty artist, but you know I can do this garbage man job, and I'm guaranteed this. You know,
And you can Instagram it and do both. You can be like a super sexy garbage man, cut the sleeves off, be hanging off the thing, and make a whole thing out of it. Garbage art.
That's next level. This is when we synergize communism and capitalism and make garbage art. That's where it all comes down to. But you know what I'm saying. But so the commies like retort to this would be that, well, this is a flaw of man under capitalism. So this is the problem, is that you have
that you even think
incentives.
this.
Yes,
Because you're in the box of capitalism.
Yes, we have to create the new man that won't even care about this, and he'll be motivated by wanting to help his community. And so if there's a need for the garbage to be cleaned, then he will, out of the goodness of his soul, because he's one with this community, he will go and do that. Now, this is, once you get into this territory, you're just like, oh, but you're imagining something that's not human. So, okay, yeah, I guess if that's the way it worked, like, if you are willing
Can you have capitalist new man too, who just wants to be charitable or something? I mean, if we're just theorizing new man.
Yeah, sure, but they don't give that credit to capitalist new man. That's only socialist new man. Capitalism inherently atomizes people or whatever. They have their whole academic arguments worked out on this, but they're stupid. But you never want to be doing that. You never want to be. You have to operate within a framework of reality.
Okay. Agreed. That's all I can say to that clip is agreed. Let's take a look here at the comments. So Kyle B said, I think you just agreed with Michael back in the Souls clip with regards to guns. No, I don't think so, because I don't think what I said, and I'll certainly clarify, this isn't what I meant, that in every situation that could arise, there are people who are capable of resisting. There might be some situations in which there are none, but the converse isn't true, that there's no circumstances in which a person can. That situation, perhaps not. I think we've already proven ourselves cowards. And the fact is, the people in the United States aren't all of humanity. And I was referring to all of humanity. Is it possible that in a particular country or culture, there could be not one man to be found, or in biblical terms, not one righteous man to be found? Yeah, I think that is possible. My favorite rodeo competition, I don't like any of them. I just go for Wayne. I don't like most of those things. I like football, and I like hockey. Well, I used to like hockey. Now that they don't allow the fights anymore, I don't really like it so much anymore. H. Reardon, I'm not sure of the context or the point you're trying to make with those two quotes, and I don't want to presume, so if maybe you could flesh it out a bit for me. So, okay, so you're saying general states' rights gist. Okay, let me put this up on the screen. Okay, now I think I see the point you are getting at. Just because a statement can be made in a wrong way or for a wrong purpose or in an incomplete purpose doesn't nullify the truth of the statement. So while a general states' rights person might say, I don't consent, they are right up to the point that they are advocating for their quote-unquote right to initiate aggression against other people, such as in the Old South. But in general, they are correct. When a states' rights person is saying to the federal government they do not consent, they are correct. Of course, they need to then deal with the person in their state who then doesn't agree with the right of the smaller governmental unit, the state, to do something. And it also is not legitimate to say, well, I don't consent to not own people. Here is my view on the Civil War. I do think the South had the right to secede. And then I think the North had the right to wage war on them for civil rights violations of people who want to be citizens of the North. It still would have ended up in a war. It just wouldn't have been a civil war because it wouldn't have been a country within itself. The country would have split, and then it would have been against a foreign bad actor. But I do think there is a right to secession, even for bad reasons. But then, if requested by the people who are being oppressed, enslaved, whatever it might be, then the North could have waged righteous war against the South and conquered it as a foreign nation. So almost the same result, just a different process to get there that I think would have been justified and would have set the bad precedent that you can't divorce. You know, this country should not be the Hotel fucking California.
Like, that was his test, was like, if you could abolish the state, but the culture that would arise would not be the one that you supported, would you still do it? Like, that's the ultimate libertarian test. So
Yes. You can't centrally plan liberty, and you can't only be for liberty. That's the Republican things. They're for freedom until they find out what freedom actually entails.
by the way, this also led to a few things in reaction to going off of the gold standard and breaking with Bretton Woods. This was what led Ron Paul to run for Congress, and this is what led to the creation of the Libertarian Party. Both of those were in response to this. And credit to those really brilliant free market thinkers, the true serious ones, who saw the writing on the wall of that they went, we know what this means. When the government goes off any type of commodity standard or any type of limiting of currency production, you're going to be in trouble. This is a very bad prospect for all the things we care about: peace, prosperity, and stability.
Okay, I only clipped that out because he was right and wrong in what he said about the formation of the Libertarian Party. That was much too simplistic. The Libertarian Party was not formed because of going off the gold standard. Was that one of the factors? Yes, but it was of a constellation of factors. And if you wanted to really pinpoint one thing, it was the wage and price controls. The night that the group of conspirators were in David Nolan's living room and finally had their informal group vote to form I guess it was somewhat of a formal group. So when they had the vote to form the committee to form a Libertarian Party, that was the night in August in which Nixon announced wage and price control. So it would be much more accurate to say that was the ultimate, that was the final catalyst. Of course, going off the gold standard and all that led up to that. But he was not exactly correct. And as a historian of the party, I felt I needed to correct that. Okay, that is all I have for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And thank you for the super chat earlier. That really, right now, as you know, I am not employed. And this is my job right now. So I do appreciate it and make very little from ads from YouTube. So once again, before I go, I do invite you as libertarians, if you enjoy this content, please consider becoming a patron. I did lose a few patrons this month, and I would like to get to where I was and actually up to the next milestone. So thank you very much. There's also different opportunities for support below. Please take a look. That's it for today. Tomorrow night, I am interviewing Steve Dasbach, who is a former chair and former executive director of the party. Just to give you a taste of how much I respect Steve. I think Steve is the second best chair this party ever had. I might actually move him up to the first best. Some of you will get mad at me, but the best chair this party ever had was Nick when he was good. Nick has been both the best and the worst chair this party has ever had. He's done both. He hasn't been in the middle. But when he was good, he was great. But if we're going to judge people by the entirety of their terms, then Steve Dasbach would be the best chair, because Steve was good consistently. And he's not a radical. He is a moderate. But I'll explain a bit in my interview with him why I have that opinion of him, because I'm not even sure he knows why I have that opinion of him. But Steve was also the campaign manager for Joe Jorgensen. He's been in the party a really long time. And what happens each time new people come in the party, and there's nothing wrong with this, but it just keeps coming up and coming up, is that why don't we nominate our presidential candidates the year before? Why are we not doing it in the even year before? Why do we do it in May of the election year? And there's a little bit of lack of perspective of history, and you can't blame new people for that. But the fact is, we used to do that. And whenever a party or any group used to do something and doesn't do it that way anymore, you need to find out why. Because you can't keep teeter-tottering back and forth between position we had, position we rejected, position we had, position we rejected. There are good reasons why we do not do that and why we should not go back to it. I don't know where my opinion is yet, because Tasha Cohen is going around really promoting going back to doing it the year before. And perhaps the reasons we changed, perhaps those reasons are no longer valid. So I would like to have multiple people on to discuss this. But I would like Steve Dasbach on, because he has some very good perspective on why we should not go back to doing it that way. And I would like to have him on to talk about it. So I'll be advertising this later tonight, because there was a bunch of people in the Mises Caucus bringing this up again. And this is going to be live, so you can ask Steve questions. You can do pushback. So please, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Mountain, we have on Steve Dasbach. Next Tuesday, I'm going to start doing more interviews, and it's probably going to be on Tuesdays if the guests can do it. We're going to have on Tim Moen, who is the current chair, though they call it leader, which just creeps me out. It's like dear leader, but the current chair of the Libertarian Party of Canada. He is a Canadian anarchist, which is just fascinating to me. So please tune in. And on Thursday, I am on Joshua Smith's show, which should be rambunctious, since we are the two black sheep of the LNC, as it were, who do not give a fuck. So it just seemed weird with this white hair cussing. I don't know. This makes me look more innocent. All right, everyone. And Dennis, don't be mad at me. I have reasons for admiring Nick for when he was good. Something you'll know about me. I will always admit when people do good just as quickly as I'll admit when they're doing bad. No matter what, I will always do that. When Nick was good, he was good. And most people do realize that. But when he was bad, he was bad. And I think he's got a slow brain bleed or something now, because I just saw him in Utah, and his personality is even different than when he was at Porkfest. Something is going on with Nick that ain't right. And this persona that he's now projecting, I'm not saying he's trying to do this. I'm just saying this is who he sounds like. He sounds like one of those people who are trying to start a cult, like a weird ass guru. His tone and inflection it's a personality change. It creeped me the fuck out. I don't know if he's talking that way now in New Hampshire, but he certainly did at the Region 1 training. in Utah. I would love to get a tape of it because he also did these really weird ass digs against Joshua Smith. They're so weird, I couldn't even describe them to Joshua. He's got to hear them for himself. All right, that will be it. We are going to go now. See you all tomorrow when we talk with Steve Dasbach. Thank you so, so much. And let me, yeah, here we go. Bye-bye, mi guapas de libertad.
What you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians, or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business, not because